He died a prisoner, never taking responsibility for the murders.
First of all, is literally dying for tax reform. We've become uncompetitive. We've lost industry because of it. Wages over so many years under Obama have been totally stagnant because of it. We have to get tax reform done.
I want to see changes in that bill, and I think there will be changes. There are some provisions of the House bill that I like better.
I never thought I'd be quoted as looking like villains from the James Bond. I guess I should take that as a compliment.
2017 was a year that tested our faith. In these moments of crisis, heroes emerged. With us tonight are some of our first responders who ran towards the danger.
Good morning to you. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Monday morning. The weekend is over, but that's a good thing because that means you can join us right here for the very latest on your news, the upcoming week and what happened over the weekend. Let's get right to our top story, though, right now. Charles Manson, the infamous cult leader behind one of the most notorious killings in American history, is dead at the age of 83, passing away overnight at a California hospital of natural causes. Manson convincing his followers to commit the heinous murders nearly 50 years ago. The killings, the trials, all of that followed, and it captivated the nation. Casey Stegall has more.
Synonymous with pure evil.
Charles Millis Scott Manson.
He's one of the country's most notorious criminals who will forever be a dark stain on American pop culture. Manson arrived in San Francisco at the height of the hippie culture. He preached on the streets claiming to be the second coming of Christ. He attracted a devoted group who dedicated their lives to his religious teaching. They were known as the Family. Manson's drug use pushed his paranoia further, and he prepared the family for what he believed the Beatles song Helter Skelter referred to, a race war destroying the country. He had complete control over his followers. During a two-night rampage in 1969, on August 8th, 4 followers killed for Manson. First, pregnant actress Sharon Tate and 5 others at this Los Angeles home. On the front door, the word pig written in Tate's blood. The next night, a businessman and his wife. What followed was a trial that gripped a nation. Manson and his followers faced first-degree murder charges. A jury convicted all of them.
They enjoyed killing. Death is Charlie's trip. Manson spoke constantly of death. Their life was murder.
Manson received a death sentence in 1971, but after California abolished the death penalty a year later, it was changed to life in prison. He was denied parole 12 times, and he died a prisoner, never taking responsibility for the murders.
I never broke nobody's will.
Casey Stegall, Fox News.
And now to another Fox News alert for you. A pair of manhunts intensifying right now for 2 cop killers in 2 different states. The officers involved were 43-year-old Sean Suter and 25-year-old Brian Shaw. Police believe that Ramel Sal Holt is the man who killed Officer Shaw. That was after a traffic stop near Pittsburgh. Authorities are hunting for a gold minivan that they think that he might be traveling in, so be on the lookout for that. And then in Baltimore today, police will clear the scene where Detective Sean Suter was killed last week. It has been on lockdown since then. Over $200,000 now being offered for information leading to an arrest in that case. And then there's a GoFundMe page that's also been set up in support of his family. So far, it's raised more than $13,000. Well, the hunt continues this morning for a possible serial killer on the loose in Tampa. 4 people are dead, and the FBI is now going door to door, desperately looking for clues. A former homicide detective and Fox News contributor Ted Williams is live for us in Tampa with the very latest on this investigation. You know, we've been following this for everyone. What is the latest, Ted?
Hi, Heather. We're here in the Seminole Heights neighborhood where they believe a killer is among them. Within a 1-mile radius from where I'm standing, starting October the 9th through November the 14th, 4 people have been shot, and they believe it's by the same man. On November 14th, Ron Felton, a gentleman, was going to a homeless shelter over my shoulder here, and he was shot. And the key right now is they believe that they have a person or a description of a person. And that person is a light-skinned black person, approximately 6 foot tall. But Heather, the other clues are the October 9th and the November 14th videos that they have been able to retrieve. In those videos, it appears on the October 9th one that the person is right-handed, and I would ask the individuals out here listening to this, especially in this area of Symoné Heights, to look at his feet and the manner in which he walks. And when you look at the November 14th video, you see a similar person. So they believe that it is one person who is killing, is on this killing spree, should we say.
So originally, Ted, the first 3 victims, they were killed when they had got off a bus, and those happened in the morning hours. Was that correct, in the early morning hours?
Well, it was in, the 3 of them were while it was dark.
Okay.
The last person killed, it was the early morning hours.
So they were evening, so it was dark, but the last person, he was walking. He was walking to, as you said, that nearby homeless shelter to help out, where he had done that for years, from what I understand. But people think that the suspect lives in that area because why?
Well, because of the manner in which he's been able to carry out these shootings and to be able to get away. Law enforcement believes that he's very familiar with this area. Last night, I got a chance to go around in this area, and I can tell you that people are vigilant, they're fearful, but they're trying to go about their lives. There's a heavy law enforcement presence in this area, Heather.
Yeah, as there should be. I'm sure people there are very concerned, and hopefully they will find the suspect soon. Ted, thank you very much for following this story for us, and we'll check back with you as the story continues to develop. Thank you. Well, some other news for you. President Trump has a clear message for Senate Republicans on tax reform. Don't disappoint the American people. Now, the White House vowing that it's willing to make a deal to get the bill on the president's desk. Griff Jenkins live in our nation's capital with what is at stake. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. The president's still optimistic that a tax reform bill will hit his desk by the end of the year, but the biggest obstacle is in the Senate, who's expected to vote after Thanksgiving on a final version. And a major sticking point is emerging: the inclusion of the repeal of the Obamacare individual mandate, a provision that was not in the House bill that passed last week. And Senator Susan Collins of Maine says it's a key issue for her, but she hasn't decided to vote no just yet because she's still hopeful that it can be changed.
I haven't reached that conclusion yet because I think there are going to be further changes. But the biggest mistake was putting in a provision from the Affordable Care Act into the Senate bill that's not in the House bill. And I hope that will be dropped or...
This is White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney says they're open to dropping it if it means a difference between passing it.
I don't think anybody doubts where the president is on repeal and replace. The White House would love to see Obamacare taken apart all at once, bit by bit, however we can do it. That being said, there's a couple of things.
Now, Heather, Collins' vote is critical in the Senate, where Republicans can only afford to lose 2 votes. And one senator, Ron Johnson, has already said he opposes it because it unfairly favors corporations on the pass-through tax rate. And at least 2 other senators have indicated that they are on the fence: Bob Corker of Tennessee and Jeff Flake of Arizona. Other rumblings of other senators possibly on the fence. So it is all hands on deck. The president took to Twitter, putting pressure on some of those senators, like Senator Flake, drawing out possibly some personality differences. Hopefully that doesn't tank their efforts, but we'll find out. It's very fluid. And by the way, the Senate on Thanksgiving vacation, so no moving until next week.
Yeah, and we know they can't do without their vacations. Thank you so much, Griff. Appreciate it. Well, another week of anthem protests across the NFL. Raiders running back Marshawn Lynch sitting for the anthem while playing in Mexico City against the Patriots. He sat down. But when Mexico's anthem played, Lynch decided to stand. And then back in the States, 3 Miami Dolphins kneeling again at a protest. And during the Chiefs and the Giants game, Marcus Peters stayed in the tunnel while Olivier Vernon took a knee. Meanwhile, retired NFL star Herschel Walker, he's slamming the movement altogether. He tells the New York Post, quote, "I absolutely think the protests are so upsetting, and I blame the commissioner. What we should do is go to Washington after the season and protest there instead. We have young men and women fighting for the flag, and we have to respect the White House." And Walker will join Fox and Friends live at 7:20 this morning, 7:20 Eastern, so tune in for that. Well, all eyes on the American Music Awards, a night of honors, controversies, and political statements. Imagine that. Well, starting with the Imagine Dragons, speaking about divisiveness during their acceptance speech for favorite pop rock group.
May we continue to progress as a nation towards one of love, of equality, no divide. You know, there's been way too much of that this last year.
And Demi Lovato bringing Danica Rome, the nation's first transgender state legislator, to the red carpet. And a music legend giving the performance of her life, Diana Ross, winning the Lifetime Achievement Award. But another performance is making some waves on Twitter. Selena Gomez accused of lip syncing. Her fans were quick to defend her, though, reminding her critics that she had a kidney transplant earlier this year. So maybe give her a break. As for the other award winners, Bruno Mars winning Artist of the Year, Keith Urban also winning Favorite Male Artist in Country Music. Big night for them. Well, the time now is about 12 minutes after the top of the hour, and the president is the only one who can order a U.S. nuclear strike. But what if the general who pushes the button says no?
You'll tell me what to do, and if it's illegal, guess what's going to happen?
You say no.
I'm going to say, Mr. President, it's illegal.
Well, a former Air Force lieutenant general who says the commander is right. He'll tell us why.
This wall of crap has never fallen on any woman in the history of America like it has on me.
And Kathy Griffin cries about being blacklisted over her beheaded President Trump picture. Why she says that Fox News is to blame. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. takes his final lap. The tributes pouring in for the NASCAR legend on his retirement. Welcome back to Fox and Friends. First, President Trump dunking on the father of a UCLA basketball star who was jailed in China for shoplifting. Our commander-in-chief responding to LeVar Ball, the father of LiAngelo Ball, who downplayed the president's efforts in his son's release. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7 Sirius XM 115. Is here with some of the reaction online, and there's been a lot of it all weekend.
Yeah, there has been. This is the latest Twitter feud that the president has gotten into after LeVar Ball said this to ESPN. What was he over there for? Don't tell me nothing. Everybody wants to make it seem like he helped me out. Well, the president fired back, tweeting this. Now that the 3 basketball players are out of China and saved from years in jail, LeVar Ball, the father of LiAngelo, is unaccepting of what I did for his son, and that shoplifting is no big deal. I should have left them in jail. He also tweeted another message saying shoplifting is a very big deal in China, as it should be 5 to 10 years in jail, but not for Father LeVar. Should have gotten his son out during my next trip to China instead. China told them why they were released. Very ungrateful. Now, reaction to this back and forth has been mixed. Jacob on Twitter says President Trump has a big heart, LeVar Ball has a big mouth, but other people are saying the president should have, risen to the occasion. Angie says, I still think you did the right thing. They are Americans and shouldn't be rotting away in prison over in China. So there you have it.
Yeah, and a lot of people were talking about Otto Warmbier, who was left over in North Korea.
Of course, yeah.
Could have been that. Well, so Comey is trolling President Trump, on Twitter.
That's right. So after this whole thing with LeVar Ball went went down on social media. James Comey sent out this tweet. A good leader takes a little more than his share of the blame, a little less than his share of the credit. He attributed that quote to the late businessman Arnold Glasgow. So could he have been talking about the president? Maybe, but a lot of folks on social media not so happy to hear him chime in. Brooklyn says a good leader doesn't craft collusions before all of the facts are in either, unless the leader is in on the scam. Another tweet by Corinne says a good leader of the FBI doesn't seek to lie or deceive. And another social media user, Instapundit, says it's good that you're quoting others rather than speaking from your own expertise here.
Ouch.
Yikes.
Isn't it amazing how the world has changed with Twitter?
Oh, my gosh. It's so divisive.
Insight, though. I mean, some good insight.
Yeah.
So Dale Jr., the final cup race for NASCAR, some tributes and some tears
absolutely.
because it's his final race.
Oh my gosh, it was such an amazing moment. Now, Martin Truex Jr. actually won the NASCAR Cup Championship yesterday, but it really was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s day. That's because, like you said, it was his final race, so he cracked open some beers in celebration of his whole entire career. A lot of social media reaction to this one. One Twitter user says, class act, hell of a career. Another, says, thank you so much for your career, and that the fan base is going to miss him immensely.
Yes, they will. 26 Cup Series wins.
Amazing.
So he's retiring
Fantastic.
because of concussion concerns, too.
Wow, yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Absolutely.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour, and a Border Patrol agent killed in an attack near the Texas southern border. President Trump now renewing his calls for the wall. We are live with the growing outrage. And they've held violent protests, and they've called for the death of police.
Get fried like bacon, pigs in a blanket, fried like bacon, pigs in a blanket.
But now one university is offering a Black Lives Matter course. Is this really what you want your tuition dollars going towards? We'll debate it.
I provide advice to the president. He'll tell me what to do, and if it's illegal, guess what's going to happen?
You say no.
I'm going to say, Mr. President, it's illegal. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to say, what would be legal? And we'll come up with options of a mix of capabilities to respond to whatever the situation is. And that's the way it works.
Well, that's the way it works. Joining us now, the top U.S. nuclear commander that you just heard speaking, General John Hyten, saying that he would defy an order by the president for an illegal nuclear strike. His comments turning some heads in the military community as tensions with North Korea escalate. And here to weigh in is retired Air Force Lieutenant General Richard Newton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Heather. It's good to be back with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. So what did you think about his comments? I mean, I thought that the very end there that he said that people aren't saying a lot about is where he said that's the way it works. So is this abnormal?
No, it's not. Actually, Heather, first off, I've got great confidence in the president and our Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and certainly General John Hyten, who I know, who's the commander of U.S. Strategic Command. We have really an exceptional assessment, review, and a consultation process inside the nuclear command and control system. So, again, I think we can assure the American people that it's a system that's worked through the decades. And, frankly, the U.S. military does not blindly follow orders. Orders really have to be legal. Mm-hmm. And so what General Hyten was referring to was legal orders have to be followed. They have to be of military necessity. They have to be proportional. They have to be distinct, and so forth. And so there is a review process that goes through the chain of command. So nothing new here, frankly.
So his role is to guide the president. So exactly what he just said. The president would speak to him and say what he wants to do, and then he would say whether or not that's legal, and then they come up with a plan if that, in fact, would not work, the first plan.
That's correct. Again, the United States has a nuclear weapons decision process. I'm not going to go into much of the details about that. But again, though, it's constant assessment, constant review, constant consultation with, the civilian oversight of our military. It includes the nuclear weapons. Starts with the President of the United States. Right. Only the President of the United States can authorize a nuclear strike. However, it does go through a very sound, disciplined, complete approach in terms of how that process works. Again, I've got, from my experience, even as a B-52 aircraft commander, sitting combat alert all the way through my time on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, overseeing the process.
So not
from an operational
abnormal.
Standpoint.
Okay.
Well, not abnormal at all.
Let's move on to the second topic, so we have time for it. The New York Times, they published this op-ed saying that they investigated the Trump administration's war on diplomacy, and this really tore into the State Department. Do you think the State Department is being undermined?
No, I don't think so. I think and we talked about this last week, when we talked about North Korea.
Right.
Where we should pursue ongoing diplomatic efforts and foremost above all, other options. I think we ought to be continuing to pursue diplomatic efforts and so forth. My point being is that the United States has a lot of tools in its arsenal, one being military, obviously, but economic and financial and information operations as well as diplomatic operations. And so I believe that we ought to continue to fund to the maximum possible is our international affairs budget and so forth. So.
But
again,
that's apparently apparently that's part of what they're saying is not happening, and because of budget cuts, that they are being undermined.
Yeah, I think you would find me to be an advocate to actually promote as strongly as possible our international affairs budget. Secretary Mattis, when he was the commander of U.S. Central Command, he advocated, and there's a quote he says, I'll kind of loosely attribute the quote, though. He says, he was for maximum funding of State Department. If we don't do that, then I'm going to need more money for ammunition. If you follow my train of thought here, it's very important that we lead in many of this very, very unstable global security environment we find ourselves in. We need military capabilities, absolutely, peace through strength, but we also need strong diplomatic efforts. We need to fund our diplomatic efforts as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Again, Lieutenant General Richard Newton, we appreciate your time as always.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning.
Thank you. Have a good day. Well, the time now is about 28 minutes after the top of the hour, and don't let the American people down. That message from President Trump as he urges Republicans to pass tax reform. So what can we expect from the Senate? Our next guest explains what happens if they don't get the win that they need. Soon to be a reality. First, Tesla promised the fastest car ever, and now there's word that the Roadster can fly. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Calls to build a border wall growing after an agent is killed in the line of duty while keeping our southern Texas border secure. Anita Vogel's here now with what the president is saying about one of his top campaign promises. Good morning, Anita.
Well, good morning, Heather. We certainly heard a lot about this during the campaign, didn't we? Now President Trump is reigniting his call to build a wall between the United States and Mexico after a Border Patrol agent is killed in the line of duty. Rogelio Martinez dying from his injuries after responding to, quote, activity while patrolling the Big Bend section of the southern border in Culberson County, Texas. His partner, whose name has not been released, is also in serious condition. President Trump tweeting, quote, Border Patrol officer killed at southern border, another badly hurt. We will seek out and bring to justice those responsible. We will and must build the wall. The FBI surrounding the area just 90 miles outside of El Paso, looking for suspects or witnesses to the crime. Senator Ted Cruz backing up the president's call for action, tweeting, quote, this is a stark reminder of the ongoing threat that an unsecure border poses to the safety of our communities and those charged with defending them. We're also praying for the full recovery of his partner, who was also attacked. I remain fully committed to working with the Border Patrol to provide them with all the resources they need to safeguard our nation. The 36-year-old Martinez had been a Border Patrol agent since 2013. He was a father to a son and was engaged to be married. As for the president's border wall, 8 prototypes are being tested right now while the Trump administration waits for Congress to approve billions in funding. Heather?
Yeah, and our prayers with that border agent's family. Certainly. Anita Vogel, live for us. It was really nice to have you here in the studio.
So nice to be here and happy for your new show.
Thank you. Well, he apologized for groping a woman while she slept, but Senator Al Franken refuses to resign. The Minnesota Democrat now promises to do a lot of reflecting during the Thanksgiving holiday, a lot of reflecting. Well, that is according to the Star Tribune after this photo and allegations surfaced last week that Franken forcibly kissed radio anchor Leanne Tweeden back in 2006 on top of doing that. Well, both Democrats and Republicans are now calling for an ethics committee investigation. Lois Lerner has long refused to speak publicly about the IRS to target conservative groups, and she wants to keep it that way.
I have not waived my constitutional rights under the Fifth Amendment. I will decline to answer any question on the subject matter.
Well, the Washington Times now reporting that the former IRS executive wants her testimony to be permanently sealed. A Lerner telling a federal court that she fears for her family's safety if her explanation of the Tea Party targeting scandal is made public. That's interesting. Her taped depositions are now part of a settled lawsuit over illegally targeting groups for their political beliefs. And Kathy Griffin is back, and she's crying foul, saying that she's been blacklisted and she's out of work over this photo depicting a severed head of President Trump that sparked nationwide outrage. The disgraced comedian blaming nearly everyone, including Fox News, in a new video titled State of the Union.
I know I took a picture that offended a lot of people, but this wall of crap has never fallen on any woman in the history of America like it has on me. Even Eartha Kitt didn't have, like, Fox News. Although, by the way, I followed now.
She's playing the woman card now. Initially, Griffin apologized for the gruesome shot. She's since taken that back several times. I wonder if she's seen the latest from ISIS with the beheading of the Pope. Well, President Trump, meantime, firing back after Senator Jeff Flake was caught in a hot mic slamming our commander-in-chief.
Come the party of Roy Moore and Donald Trump. We are the toast.
And President Trump tweeting this, he'll be a no on tax cuts because his political career is toast. A spokesperson for Flake says that how the senator votes on the tax reform bill will have nothing to do with the president. Well, tax reform is heating up in Congress, as you can tell, and Republicans have one final month to fulfill one of the Trump administration's biggest promises. Can GOP leaders get a bill on the president's desk, or will it blow up in the Senate like we saw Obamacare blow up? Here now to weigh in, a commentary writer for the Washington Examiner, Philip Wegman. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Philip.
Thank you for having me, Heather.
Appreciate it. Well, we just heard from Griff Jenkins that they're headed off for Thanksgiving break. They're already on Thanksgiving break. Do you think that they can get this done?
Well, that's definitely the goal, to have something on President Trump's desk by Christmas. But the thing here is that the timing is critical because the threat is existential. If Republicans don't manage to get tax reform in 2016, I don't think that they have a chance in 2018 because they've already shown legislative incompetence with their failure to pass Obamacare. So this is absolutely critical.
Right, and the failure with Obamacare, with that whole plan, involves some of these senators that are in question right now. And we can take a look at those 6 senators who could hold up the tax debate. Susan Collins, she did with Obamacare. Bob Corker, Jeff Flake, you just heard him commenting. Ron Johnson, John McCain also held up Obamacare. And Lisa Murkowski, also a familiar name right there. So some of the same folks.
Absolutely. It's already looking like a perfect storm inside of the GOP conference. I mean, like we saw, President Trump is already counting out Jeff Flake. Susan Collins is up in the air when it comes to the individual mandate being included in this tax reform. And then you've got Ron Johnson, who wants to see small businesses treated more fairly under the final product. And then John McCain wants regular order, whatever that means anymore. So the whip count is looking really, really ugly.
That's why John McCain said no to the Obamacare repeal. He also cited, the correct order of things. Why did they include that individual mandate when all of these folks, we already know they couldn't lose these votes, and why did they think they wouldn't lose them this time around?
Well, I think the big Republican push here is to bull rush Democrats. They want to get as much as possible with as little debate as necessary. The idea being that the less time that Democrats have to examine the details, the less time Democrats have to throw up obstacles in the end. So I'm not sure what the final package is going to look like. I don't think anyone knows at this point. But the hope is to throw everything, including that kitchen sink, in there and see what can get to the finish line.
And that's what John McCain Symoné has a problem with. But President Trump, he is still feeling very positive about it, regardless of what happens. And he had this tweet, and we can put that up. He said Republican senators are working very hard to get tax cuts and tax reform approved. Hopefully it will not be long, and they do not want to disappoint the American public, which is exactly what you said.
Well, I hope that they're working hard over their Thanksgiving break. They're not in town right now. But, yeah, there's an understanding inside of the Senate right now that this is their chance to get something done, that they need to. And I think we saw from the White House yesterday, you had Mark Short and then also Budget Director Mulvaney on a lot of the Sunday shows, showing that there's flexibility. They don't want something ideological like the individual mandate repeal to slow things down. So don't think for a moment that they wouldn't scrap that part of the tax plan if it meant really getting something to the president's desk for once.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting to see the inner workings of this. Philip Wegman, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good day. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and ISIS on the run. The terror group driven out of their last stronghold, but the battle is far from over.
That problem is not going to go away as long as radical Islam can still propagate their propaganda.
Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North breaks down how the U.S. can crush ISIS once and for all. And the TSA gearing up for a record-setting rush, what you can expect for your Thanksgiving getaway.